Now, it's only been a few days since Carolina was eliminated from the playoffs. And I intentionally didn't do this the day after as much as I wanted to because there's a lot to talk about with Carolina. There's not a whole lot on this board. There doesn't need to be for there to be a lot to talk about with Carolina. The Carolina Hurricanes are, as an organization and as a fan base, underdogs in both ways. And I know I saw Carolina fans, that old lady throwing a punch at a Boston fan over. You guys, people on the Twitter machine have seen it, and I don't care. I see that and I go, you know what? Good on her. I don't know what else was going on, but that whatever. Fans being jerks at hockey games. Who knew? The '70s called and said, "Oh, you think you got jerks at hockey games? Holy, we were fighting with them." Um, and I mean by them, I mean the players. Anyways, 99 points for Carolina, 46, 29, and 7 record, which is really impressive considering where this team was at certain points of the year. So they make the playoffs. They beat Washington in 7. They beat the Islanders in 4 straight. Everything's exciting. And then Boston sweeps them. And everybody's got this whole sweep thing. You know what? Sweeps, again, it takes me back to 1995 when it felt like most series they were in a hurry to get them done. Let's hurry. Come on, we got places to be. Just sweep this. No, don't go 6 or 7. We got places to be. So it's one of those things that happens. It can be really tough to turn the momentum of a series. And with Carolina against Boston, that's kind of what happened. And it was Boston's experience too that really shone through. Um, and in the end, uh, I can't really slag Williams. He's part of the reason they get to where they get during the regular season, and the fact they get to the conference final has a lot to do with him as well. And right now they're at $54.2 million in cap that they've spent of the 83 million that is projected as the highest it could go next year. It's possible it stays near the 79.5 million it is right now, but no matter what the cap ends up at, right now Carolina looks to be in pretty good shape. Absolutely, despite the reality that a lot of the core reasons they made the playoffs and they did well up for renewal. They have 3 second round picks, which I thought was worth mentioning in this video because they have their own first, but they have 3 seconds. And Don Waddell, kind of a mover and a shaker type guy, and some of those moves backfire. Jeff Skinner, some of those moves turn out really, really well, which, the Niederreiter one stands out just off the top of my head. And the goaltending. What he did with the goaltending was huge. But those 3 second round picks mean the Carolina Hurricanes may be in the market to pick up a late first round pick. So it's one of those, a team with a pick at, say, 27, 28, somewhere in that area goes, we're not excited about who we have. There's 2 guys in the second we like. We'd like to pick up a second round pick. Don Waddell, you got those picks. Can we talk? And then Waddell makes a deal to move up. So that's the kind of thing that I might be not entirely surprised to see happen at this year's draft. But that's just sort of an aside. Now, when it comes to free agents, they do have some decisions to make. Williams, their team captain, does he come back next year? Probably. He's earned it. And I can't see him going anywhere else. Not at this stage. This is really where he belongs at this stage of his career, and I'd be very surprised if he doesn't come back. He's the one that started the antics that people didn't like. So why not bring the guy who started the antics back? When he started the antics, nobody really cared. And then all of a sudden, people did. McKegg is UFA this summer. If they want him, they'll keep him. He's not going to get a huge raise. Ferland's the interesting one. They held on to Ferland rather than rent him out at the deadline because they were in a playoff spot. The thing that I laughed at the most this year was that when the Michael Ferland trade talk started, all the rumors started, it was when this team was just in the crapper. They were right near the bottom of the league. And so it made sense that you're not going to hold on to Ferland. And then they started winning. And even though they were winning and they were getting close to and then into a playoff spot, there was still, Ferland might be a rental at the deadline. I kept thinking, no, they're in a position to make the playoffs. And then and then they said something along the lines of, well, they'll keep Ferland as a rental at the deadline. So it's like they've got their own. No, just say they're holding on to Ferland. It's weird to say they're holding on to a rental of a guy they've had all year. It's weird. Both Mrazek and McElhinney are up this summer. Do not overpay your goaltenders. This is where Don Waddell is going to show just how much he's learned since the failures that took place with the Atlanta Thrashers. He picked the right goaltenders with Mrazek and McElhinney. They overperformed. I would argue that McElhinney had a career year at 35. The odds of him replicating it, especially with the amount of games he played. Now, he had a very good year last year for Toronto as well. So I'm not going to throw any shade at the rest of his career. He had a very good year last year with Toronto. But he's really more of a 25-game guy. And seeing as he's turning 36, it's in that danger area where they could give him, say they give him 2 years, $4 million per, just as an example, and then he's awful in October. So, you know, that's the danger. And then you've got this $4 million contract, like the Scott Darling one, right? That they're apparently buying out when the buyout period reaches us next month. Mrazek, Mrazek is a middle of the road goaltender. Not great, not horrible. I honestly look at Mrazek and I say, he might be a starter next year. He might end up being Carolina's starter next year. He had some iffy numbers in the playoffs eventually. It seemed like as the playoffs went along, he seemed to, I don't know. It's not something that I can say there were holes in his game, really, because against the Islanders, he was really, really solid in that one game that then he got hurt, and then McElhinney went in and stole the show. And then they went back to Mrazek, which I didn't understand, and I guess we could analyze that, but I mean, when your team's not scoring goals, it really doesn't make a huge difference who's in net for you. Restricted free agents this summer, Sebastian Aho. That's the end right there. Sebastian Aho. What do you do with Aho? How much is he worth? Brian Burke's predicting there's going to be a fight for the Aho contract. He had 30 goals and 53 assists this year, 83 points in 82 games. What's he worth? What's his ceiling? Is this his ceiling, or is he going to get better? And again, for Don Waddell, answering that question and deciding how much money to pay him in a market that traditionally has not paid top dollar to all of its players, it's going to tell us a lot about whether or not they're going to fall back next year. Because that's going to be the prediction. I have no doubt in my mind that there's going to be a lot of people predicting that Carolina and the Islanders will be the two teams that fall back out of the race next year. And you can plunk in Philadelphia and probably Montreal as the ones that will be the sexy picks to go back into the playoffs next year. And Philly, just because they don't normally stay out of the playoffs for very long. So you've got Aho, you've got Mrazek, you got McElhinney, you got Williams. That's a lot of the identity of this team. And then Brock McGinn, you got Nedeljkovic, the goaltender from the American League. He's a restricted free agent this summer. He has earned the right to be the backup. So if people are going to say, oh, well, it's fine with the goaltending because we got this guy in the American League with Charlotte Checkers. Yeah, I know. He's played well. He's earned the right to have a shot at the backup job. I don't know that you want to necessarily just hand it to him, but if they decide to do that, there's Phoenix Copley in Washington saying, yeah, it's fine. You can do that with an AHL goaltender now and probably end up okay. But they still need the starter. Hayden Fleury's a restricted free agent, and Menelanen, who also has arbitration rights. Menelanen, I'm going to do a video soon on, and probably, when I say soon, I mean probably during this week, on breakout candidates, I think, for next year. Guys who I think are going to score more than they did this year, and I think have a lot of potential. Menelanen's one of those guys, and I know he's been a healthy scratch of points this year. I like a lot I see with this kid, and I think he may very well be one of those breakout candidates for a team that needs it. Goals for, they were 16th this year. Goals against, they were 6th. So the goaltending was really solid. Their defense is fantastic. Slavin, Pesce are two of the most underrated defensemen in the league. Did Slavin have that coming out party this spring? Yes. His playoff run exposed him to a lot of hockey fans that may not have seen him play before. but I don't know how much talk there's going to be about him once October rolls around. With Aho's numbers, they're great. They had 420 goal scorers, which is okay, but they had 13 who had 10 or more goals. So the scoring depth is there. My issue with Carolina is they need that star level player, that Nathan McKinnon type guy. And that's where with Aho, you're either of the mind that, oh, he can be a Nathan McKinnon type, or, well, he can be your 1A, your support guy, but that really big superstar player that can put the team on his back, he may not have that. So you can be of either mind, and neither are equally valid right now. The kid's only 3 years into his career. But that's a question, again, that Don Waddell's going to have to answer. Is Aho going to be the guy? Do you pay him in that way? That he's going to be the guy that he's going to score 40, that he's going to have, 100 points at some point in his career, at least 90, 95? Or is this his ceiling and you're going to have to augment the team with other things? Where this team came from isn't just a matter of 83, 87, 86 from the previous 3 seasons. It was during this year as well. They were 6-7-2 on November 6th. December 5th, they were 12-11-4. And then December 29th, they were 15-17-5. And it was all your normal stuff. 15-17-5. This team sucks. They don't have any stars. Their goaltending's been good. They're just they don't have it. They're just not good enough. They're mediocre. Meanwhile, Skinner goes to Buffalo, scores a ton of goals early, and meanwhile, Lindholm and Hannafin go to Calgary, and Calgary becomes the number 1 team in the league. So, especially in November, and especially even into early December, I would say, you look at where this team was, and you look at Don Waddell. Yeah, the opinion of him was not high at that stage. At that stage, Carolina was down. Calgary looked fantastic. With Carolina's coach and two of their top players, and Buffalo had been really solid to that point. So Carolina, you guys are idiots. You sold off all of these players, and for what? And then in the end, it was okay. Everything worked out because after they were 15-17-5, they win 31 games. They lost 12 in regulation, and they lost 2 in overtime or shootouts. And this is why when people say anything about how they shouldn't have been able to beat Washington because they were a wild card, they were a crappy team. You were only paying attention to the fun stuff going on the side, by which I mean the bunch of jerks. The Storm Surge. The Storm Surge is in and of itself a story that is worth telling. And it started out with Justin Williams' idea of, we'll do Viking clap and we'll jump at the glass on that end. Do the Lambeau leap. All right. And it evolved. It evolved into something bigger. It evolved into something bigger because after December 29th, they were winning a lot. They were winning a ton. So it went from us seeing the celebrations they would have after a win once every 10 days, maybe, when they're at home. It has to be a win at home, to constant. Another win, another celebration. Another win, another celebration. And those Storm Surge celebrations got more and more produced, more and more production value as time went along, and you get Evander Holyfield into it at one point. And it really became this movement. And of course, Don Cherry steps in with calling them a bunch of jerks, which just made people like it more. I swear, Don Cherry could sit there one day and say, "You kids out there, don't you dare go out there and eat dirt." And you'd have thousands of people going out into their yard with a shovel and a fork. And that's just the way it is. No matter what he says, people will be like, "I don't like him. I'm going to go eat some dirt." This was an incredible run by Carolina after December 29th. The trick is this. This is where it gets kind of sticky. They were 15-17-5 at December 29th. They went on an incredible run into the playoffs that continued in the playoffs. Is the reality of the Carolina Hurricanes that this was a team that went on an incredible run that continued into the playoffs, and it was this really nice feel-good story with this bunch of jerks and then front-running jerks as well, right? Go eat some dirt. And this was this great story, or is this something that they'll build on into next year, and they will continue to tell this story? They'll continue to have Storm Surge celebrations. I'm kind of worried about the Storm Surge celebrations next year. I have some concern that it's going to be this massively produced thing next year. They'll make it this whole event next year. Like I have some concerns that, because when it got really produced, to me it took some of the fun out of it. And here's why. I like the idea of players sitting around at the bench when there's 5 minutes left. They're clearly going to win. They're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this silly thing. All right, we're going to do this at center ice. And the fans will have a gas, and then we'll just be done with it. Now, when it turns into facilities is in on it, the whole organization's in on it, they're bringing people in, and it's this whole production, and basically the players are told at the start of before the game even starts, all right, if you guys win tonight, here's what we're doing. Vander Holyfield's going to come out on the ice and punch somebody in the head, at least going to pretend he does, and he's got to get dragged off the ice. I don't know. It loses some of what it was at the start, and that's where it kind of bothered me, because I supported the Storm Surge, still do, but when it becomes this really, really produced thing with props and lighting that's obviously pre-decided and prearranged, I don't know. It takes the fun out of it. Like for instance, if I was doing like the road hockey stuff where we promote we have the road hockey videos that we upload after that shows that I'm short and I can't run. My mind says one thing, my body goes, dude, you're in your 40s, you're not doing that anymore. No, we don't do that anymore. Yeah, you used to do that when you're 19. But if we had a celebration after that where, we upload a video of us just, celebrating after we all high five and do some little river dance thing. Don't worry, guys who come out to the meetups, we're not doing river dance. But then all of a sudden you see this massive like Broadway level promotion and production, and there's lighting, and you'd go, I don't think Shannon's, I don't think these are these meetups. He seems to have this whole pre-planned thing. See, now people are going to be disappointed when my meetups don't feature some kind of a post-game celebration. But it just it took the feeling of I don't know, it changed it for me. It did. And it didn't seem like it was as fun, because it didn't feel like these guys came up with this on the bench. It felt like, oh, all right, so the organization came up with this idea. All right. Totally changes it. So we'll see what they do next year. The biggest thing for them, the goals against are great. The coaching's great with Rod Brindamore. The goals for at 16th, concerning. The scoring depth is there. The top end scoring, they need a little more of. They really missed Skinner. They need that level of winger, at least a 30-goal scorer. They need at least a 30-goal scorer. And in the offseason, there aren't a ton of them available. So we'll see if they end up picking one up. I think they could use another center, because every team needs more centers. That's kind of how that works. You can't have too many centers. You can move a center to the wing. When you're moving wings to the center, which they did with Aho, and it worked well, but when you're moving wings to the center, it gets tricky, because wings normally aren't very good at face-offs, and it is more of an adjustment than taking a center and going, yeah, you know how you manage the whole ice? Just manage that side. A little bit easier. So we'll see what they do. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below regarding the Carolina Hurricanes, the year they had. It was an amazing run for them. And is it just a run, or will it continue next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.